Dobar dan svima, nadam se da me svi čujete. Ispričavam se za ovih 10 minuta što smo malo kasnili, smo čekali zapravo da se svi spojimo, jer još uvijek Zoom je možda nekima i novi, iako se misli da smo se sada svi naviknuli na ovaj virtualni svijet. Prvo bih se zapravo htjela zahvaliti HDLU, posebno ravnateljici Ivani Andabaka te Vidi Mejić za svu koordinaciju na ovome projektu i htjela bih zapravo istaknuti zašto smo baš organizirali ovakav seminar uz salon mladih koji je kurirala kustosica Nika Šimičić. Ja sam se osobno u Hrvatsku vratila prije 3 godine i primijetila sam da je dosta hrvatskih umjetnika zapravo nepoznata im ta kategorija nekog, možemo tako reći, stranog tržišta, odnosno kako doći do stranih tržišta, kako također doći do stranih institucija, fondacija i uopće ta kategorizacija fondacija, kolekcija, muzeja, znači privatnih muzeja, zatim muzeja u državnom, lokalnom vlasništvu. Još uvijek netko ima, kao što bi rekli Englezi, možda blurred lines oko toga, te sam zapravo htjela pozvati ljude s kojima već surađujem dugi niz godina, kako bismo nekako imali taj neposredan kontakt, odnosno neposrednu tu reakciju i kako bi nam rekli prvotna zapravo iskustva iz njihovih bogatog CV-a. Samo ću za početak reći tko će biti danas s nama. Za početak imamo Leigh Tanner, ona je zamjenica direktore u Yuz Foundaciji u Šangaju, te također su osnivačica platforme Museum 2050 koji pokušavaju redefinirati tu instituciju muzeja. S njom ćemo pričati na engleskom jeziku. Zatim imamo Vanju Žanko koja zapravo radi kao executive assistant u studiju Olafur Eliassona, ali također vodi udrugu Nomad, odnosno udrugu za promicanje kulture umjetnosti o kojoj ćemo nešto više reći. Te za kraj imamo Simone Sentali iz Beča, koja je Head of Collection, odnosno voditeljica kolekcije Thyssen-Bornemisza Art Contemporary, te također Petra Loša. On je zapravo Austrijanac, možemo tako reći, koji je već u Hrvatskoj dugi niz godina i koji cijelo vrijeme gura tu jednu umjetničku agendu u hotelima Maistra Collections. Tako da ćemo od njega uopće čuti što oni zapravo žele unutar to jednog korporativnog sustava, što žele zapravo napraviti s umjetnošću, odnosno kako je žele reaktualizirati u tom kontekstu. Za početak bih pozvala Leigh Tanner. Leigh, this is our call for you.
Yeah, I heard my name, so I thought I'd put my video on.
Sorry for the Croatian introduction, but we have to tell. I will just say a few words about you and your background in Croatian, and then we can start with the discussion. Leigh Tanner, znači ona je završila povijest umjetnosti na sveučilištu u Stanfordu, zatim je završila kritičke i kustosske studije na sveučilištu u Kolumbiji i ja sam je zapravo poznala u Šangaju kad je radila kao dio Šangaj projekta u jednom research department, odnosno tom istraživačkom dijelu i nakon toga je zapravo počela raditi za Yuz Fondaciju, jednu od najpoznatijih fondacija u Šangaju kolekcionara Budijateka, te također su osnivačice platforme Museum 2050 o kojoj ćemo više reći. To je zapravo organizacija čiji je cilj redefinicija muzeja i muzejskih institucija i kako bi one trebale izgledati do 2050. godine. Leigh je također zanimljivo zato što ona radila u više tih institucionalnih modela, od same njujorške MoME, to je njezin istorodni grad, do uopće šangajskog konteksta, tako da će nam reći više o tom jednom američkom i kineskom, odnosno azijskom načinu rada i usporedi recimo s europskim koji također ima iskustva. I hope you understood everything. Everything is for your see. I would just like to welcome you on behalf of the Croatian Association of the Artists. And I would just like to start with the introduction about your background and exactly what are you exactly working. What is your job description as a deputy director at the Yuz Foundation, as also as one of the co-founders of the platform Museum 2050.
Thank you. That was a lovely introduction. Yeah, so as Jelena mentioned, I have kind of two roles with my work with Yuz. So Yuz Foundation, we were founded by Indonesian Chinese entrepreneur Budi Tek. So he started collecting in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then created the Yuz Foundation, which is, we are registered as a nonprofit in Hong Kong. There's about 1,500 artworks that are under our collection. And, you know, Budi Tek is still collecting today. And in 2014, he founded the Yuz Museum in Shanghai. So I also work on our international projects, but my main job is I manage our collection. So making sure everything is, safe and protected and secure as we acquire new works. Also with loans, we often do loans to other institutions in China and also around the world. And then also a big part of my job is that the Yuz Museum in Shanghai, we have a partnership with the Los Angeles County Museum of Art in LA. So because of that ongoing partnership, I work a lot with LACMA in LA. And then we also have a partnership with the Qatar Museums, which is the museum authority that runs 8 different institutions in Doha, in Qatar. And so we have an exhibition sharing partnership with them as well. So I kind of coordinate with them when we have exhibitions coming to the Yuz Museum, or also when our collections travel to both Doha or LA. I'm kind of the main point of contact. But I am a trained curator, so that was kind of originally where my background lies. And then in my work with Museum 2050, we organize an annual symposium. We organize workshops for arts professionals to do staff training, essentially. We do publications. We have an ongoing series called Dispatches. So I founded Museum 2050 with my friend Nicole Ching because we felt like there really needed to be more community and more opportunities for peer-to-peer mentorship within the arts industry in China, but let's be honest, kind of everywhere, right? Oftentimes there's a lot of small institutions, but you don't have the same structure that you do maybe in the banking industry or in even other creative industries. So for us, a huge part of that was to find a way to keep people connected so they stay in the industry, and also offer support to young professionals as they're just going out, so that they know who to turn to, and also hopefully don't leave the arts industry in China, that they stay and help build a stronger industry together. So those are kind of some of the hats that I wear currently.
I would like to first focus actually on the Yuz Foundation and on the art collector Buditak. You said he's been collecting since the 90s, early 2000s. So I was wondering, what is the pattern of collecting? How do they find new artists? Is it through the art fairs, through the media, through visiting actually the art exhibition? And is it mainly focused on Asian or Chinese artists? Or also are they open to the international artists such as the European ones?
So when he first started collecting, and how he kind of built his collection, is he was buying a lot of artwork by contemporary Chinese artists. And at that time, as you can imagine, there wasn't much interest from collectors. So he was really looking to what was art historically important. And he was able to acquire really important works for contemporary Chinese art history. So that is a big part of the collection, but definitely in the last kind of 5 to 10 years, he's been collecting a lot of international art. I think he likes to joke that when he first started out, he paid very expensive tuition, which is to say that he bought a lot of bad art before he kind of learned more about art. But of course, like anything else, right, he started by just going and seeing art. He still goes to see a lot of art in person. I wouldn't say that there is a specific mission that he talks about with the Yuz Foundation acquisitions and his collecting. But I would say that he very clearly knows the art historical canon now in a way that he didn't when he first started. So it was a lot of education, a lot of working with advisors. So also he has people that he trusts a lot, and they are the ones that are often going to studio visits with, very young artists and coming back and saying, hey, there's this really young artist I want you to meet. But, in thinking about preparing for this, I think one thing that I wanted to point out, and again, I'm not from the commercial side of things, like we acquire as a foundation, we're a nonprofit, and, I'm much more on the institutional side. But I think one thing I would say is that there's always like a huge long list of people that he's keeping tabs on, right? People that he likes their work, but maybe it's not the right timing, or the series isn't, their practice at the moment isn't perfect for the museum, or isn't something he's looking to collect. But it's definitely people he keeps an eye on. And then, maybe next time they have an exhibition, they send him the information or the publication. And so he kind of, keeps track of different artists and their work too. And then that also, as he gets to see their practice evolve, often with emerging artists, those are the people that he'll start acquiring their work when he's been following them for a bit. Also because, again, when you're immersed in so much art, there's also a lot to see and a lot to consider, right? So I would say that he keeps an eye out for things, and he has people that he trusts and recommend things, but it's also oftentimes things he just sees something and he really likes the way it looks. He collects very large works. So we have quite a few over 10-meter paintings that I have the joy of conserving and managing in our warehouses. But he generally, in terms of scale, is also looking at a much larger scale, and people know that about him too. So that's also when people find really amazing installations or sculptural works. That's also often when artists will come to him and say that they have a project that they're interested to do. Also through the Yuz Museum, we have the project space of art. So we will do, we usually do 3 to 4 exhibitions per year of solo shows of emerging artists. So that space also is run through the foundation, and oftentimes it'll be just proposals that we get directly from the artists. And often we do commissions through that space. So we often will receive like an introduction from either directly from an artist or from, maybe someone who's a friend of the artist or a gallerist or an advisor, and then kind of start the conversation from there. And that's both Chinese artists as well as international artists. We bring a lot of international art to Shanghai, so it's certainly not only Chinese in our collection.
What would you say, since during this actually seminar we're mostly dealing with the Croatian artists, what would you recommend to them, since we're a very small country, we don't have this like huge visibility in the international art scene? What would you recommend, for example, for the Croatian emerging artists? You said they can also subscribe, or they can also send their own applications, but I feel like in Croatia, a lot of Croatian artists, they're still afraid of somehow sending their application to the national museums because they were afraid they would end up in the spam. How often actually, when you receive the applications, how often actually do you read them? Do you go through details, do you go in details with every application actually?
I think it really depends. I mean, again, I'm sure a smaller organization, someone is more likely to read your proposal, even if they don't respond to it. And there are also artists that I personally really like their practice, or I've seen their work, and I'll maybe follow them through their, website, that, the more info, stay in touch kind of newsletter, that I'll follow them. And maybe if they even directly email me that they have a new exhibition, maybe I don't even, I'm just like, oh, congratulations. And it's not something that I would be like, oh, I'm keeping you in mind for an exhibition soon. But I definitely keep tabs on them. In terms of being worried about reaching out, I think, unfortunately, this is a horrible recommendation to make in the middle of a global pandemic, but that's also, I think, why residencies are so important, because as you're aware, like, networking is huge, and once you have also more familiarity, you're more likely to find opportunities. So if you're interested in China, there's this amazing platform called China Residencies, and they coordinate a lot of information about different residency opportunities in China specifically. So when things open up again, to come for a couple months to Shanghai or Beijing or somewhere else and work on a research project, that can also be a really good opportunity to meet a lot of artists that are here, meet a lot of museum directors that are here. I think residencies are really powerful that way, and a lot of organizations are trying to find ways to connect people. I don't know if you've heard of Meet for Photo, but it's another organization specifically targeted at photographers that was trying to recently, I think a couple months ago, replicate that kind of online interaction that you might, or that in-person interaction that you might have. So it was for photographers, and they could send their portfolios, and then certain experts would decide if they wanted to help review them for a book or do other things with them. So I think now there's a lot more online possibilities, but I would also say that applying for things is a skill. And so even if you send your proposal or your portfolio to someone and they don't respond, that just means that next time your portfolio will be even better, and you'll be, even better equipped to apply for something. So even in terms of residencies or an artist grant or something, even if you don't get it, it's worth applying, because it just forces you to get all of your materials together. And it just is it's a skill. Unfortunately, you just have to get good at applying for things, and you get better and better at tailoring your application specifically to the needs of the institution or the grant or, whatever organization you're talking about. And so that's why I would say the number one thing, especially now, is to make sure you have a website, even if it's just very simple, or to have a way that people can get in touch with you, or when you do send information, they can immediately go see that website and kind of know more about you. Because without that, it makes it very hard for someone to track you down later. Because even if they remember, oh, I saw, a really interesting proposal 6 months ago, but I can't find it. For them to be able to look back or even see other work that you've done, if you've sent a proposal or just met someone and followed up with them to, ask for a virtual studio visit, because that's also something I'm doing a lot of now too, is like online visits, just like a Zoom call with an artist to talk to them about their practice. And, that's also something that you just kind of have to do and get in the habit of. So I know it can be really scary, and oftentimes people don't respond to you necessarily, but that doesn't mean that they won't forward on your portfolio to someone else who might be interested. And it doesn't mean that they won't remember you later.
Mm-hmm. But it's interesting what you said about the website, because a lot of Croatian artists, they usually focus on the social media, mostly Instagram, because like through Instagram you can get a lot of networking, or Facebook. But it's also important to have in mind that a lot of these social medias, they are not available in other countries, primarily in China. For example, now we are talking via Zoom, but Zoom is, for example, you have to have a VPN server in China in order to have just this like a normal seminar. So it's also important to have this in mind once we want to apply to some, for example, to some foundation, or I don't know, to some collection or the museum. It's also important to always think that we always have to have a website, as, for example, as you said, even the simpler one. I don't know if, for example, now when Leigh, she mentioned a lot of these residences, like, for example, Space of Art, or this China residence Mir for Photo. I just want to tell all of the artists that after this conversation, I will just write a short summary and I will link all of this. So you don't have to, if you cannot catch taking notes, don't worry, I will send you everything after 8. I was also wondering, for example, when we were preparing the conversation, this seminar, actually, we discussed a lot about the Museum 2050 and how the institutional models in the States and in China, primarily in China, but also in Asia, differ a bit from the ones to Europeans, because European institutions, they tend to be very hierarchical. They're also more traditional in terms of the approach of the artists. We still have this agenda also in Croatia, that the curators, they have to find the artists, while, for example, in the other countries, we have more open this museum as part of this eco-museology, actually the new museological ways of thinking about the museums. So how is the situation in China, for example, especially with this Museum 2050? Do you have open opportunities for the artists also to join the conversation about the institutional models, how the museum should work and should operate in the end in the community?
Yeah, actually the conference that we organized for Museum 2050 last year specifically looked at kind of what do we want from museums, and wanted to involve artists in that conversation as well. So maybe for a bit of background, museums in China are quite young. Certainly art museums are super, super young when you're not talking about historical, like palace museums. And most of them are less than 15 or 20 years old. So that means that compared to someplace like MoMA in New York, you have less of a hierarchy. We're smaller, we're more flexible, and I think you also have a willingness to try new things. So I think, especially for artists who are from outside of China, maybe that's harder to kind of grasp, because it is a very different environment. But I would say that also means that people here are always super keen for new projects. Also because a lot of the organizations here are quite young, that also means that their staff tends to be quite young. And so, when you have people who are looking for interesting projects, they're willing to look all over the world, not just in China. And so I think that, it makes it easier to approach people. But the question is, how do you get in touch with people in the first place? And that's why, having resources like Asia Art Archive, which might be a good place to start understanding different organizations in Hong Kong, in Asia generally. You have, as I mentioned, China Residencies is a platform as well. Museum 2050, we work with different museums all over China. And oftentimes, we will have opportunities for exhibitions or projects, or even just artist talk, virtual or in person, that just come to us just through someone getting in touch, saying, hey, I have an artist friend who's based in Croatia. Would you be interested in doing a virtual talk? And I think that Oftentimes people are happy to have really interesting content wherever it comes from. And it's much less, formalized. And I think there's good and bad that comes with that, right? I think it's less professionalized in a lot of ways. So you have to be aware of that. But I also think that it means that there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of opportunities. And so again, it goes down to like, as long as you have an ability to put together a proposal or send information about your practice or your portfolio, and send it out, oftentimes people will respond and be interested. But I know that sometimes it can be hard to figure out where exactly you should go.
But do you see here a difference between, for example, a lot of Croatian, the museums are state funded or city funded, so a lot of curators or curatorial staff, they tend to be a bit comfortable with their lives because they have their own salary, and for them, for efficiency at work is not, for example, sometimes the most important. But do you see the difference between state-funded museums or foundation and also the ones who are private funded, which is in the United States mostly the case?
Yeah, well, 100%. And I think I would say that in China, the way that most structures of museums work is that they tend to be privately funded. There are a few state-funded contemporary art museums, but there's very, very few. So it tends to be either like an individual company or a real estate company or individual collector. They tend to be single funder, so one person or one entity is kind of covering the cost of the museum, and so that also impacts the way that exhibitions get chosen, and it also again impacts the staff. I think you have a lot of people who have worked in many different organizations. Often you have people who are also working independently in China. One thing that I will say for China that I often find is different from other places is it's super easy to find exhibition space here. There's lots of new museums, and they need content to fill them, and they don't necessarily have super experienced staff. So depending on the institution that you're talking about, oftentimes, if you send a proposal for an exhibition and it's something that they're interested in, they would love to have it in their space. So that also, the bureaucracy around the way that exhibitions are chosen exists very differently here, also because of the funding structure. I mean, I would say in the US there is some state funding, but it's very limited. It is obviously heavily corporate. And then also the bureaucracy that you have, because you have very large scale organizations in the US in a way that you simply do not here. Even if the exhibition space itself is very large, the staffing capabilities and the experience that you're talking about is extremely different. So that's kind of something to keep in mind as well.
Mm-hmm. But what would you recommend? For example, you said there are a lot of opportunities for exhibition spaces in China, but also it's really important that you mentioned that all the CVs and all the portfolios that are to be sent, they always have to be updated. For me personally, it's the worst when I have a portfolio that it's not updated. I immediately don't take it seriously. But you said a very important thing, that it has to be tailored to its needs. I see a lot of artists, they have the same portfolio, they send to very different museums, which is probably the biggest error they can do. Can you just elaborate more on this, how it should be tailored actually according to some institutional standards?
Yeah, and I think this goes back to what I was saying about how this really is a skill you have to practice, just like applying for jobs. And that bothers me too, because for instance, I mentioned we have this program of, emerging artists. We do these small scale solo shows. We have to do commissions. So if I receive a proposal that is, maybe in the body of the email is like, I have this exhibition proposal for your reference. I have seen the shows that you do with this emerging artist project. I'm super keen to do something. I know that you're often interested in large scale painting. Please see my proposal attached. And the attachment is a portfolio of really dynamic, large scale painting. That to me makes sense, because that's someone who knows a little bit about, the founder of our museum, the kind of artwork he collects, knows a little bit about our exhibition program, which is not to say that they've read every exhibition catalog for the past 6 years, but it shows knowledge that there was some thought, that he or she didn't just send us a proposal of a performance art piece with no email, right? That's just here, performance. So I think that when I say catering, I mean, you really have to think about, okay, how does my art fit into the mission of this museum or this foundation or even a gallery, to be honest? You know, having understanding and awareness of the other artists that they've shown or the types of programs that they show, or the people that work there. If you know in particular that one person who's maybe new to the organization, but they have an interest in, I don't know, like in biology, like artwork in biology and that intersection. And then you email them and say, I have this new research project about, you know, art and biology. Would you be interested?
The project, it doesn't have to be just when you finish the project. You can be like,
100%. And even if you meet someone in person or you have an online meeting with them and, you know, maybe they're kind of interested in your work and it doesn't lead immediately to an exhibition, that doesn't mean that, you know, 3 months later when you have a show, you shouldn't absolutely email that person and update them. Because that's another thing too, is that you want to maintain your network. Not only do you want to grow your network and make sure that you're accessible so that people have a place to know more about what you're up to, but you also want to get back in touch. And the easiest way to do that is when you have a reason to, right? So if you have a show, or if you just finished a work, or even if you just started a research project, and you're reaching out because you wanted to tell them all about your research project, and could you get them on the phone for 30 minutes and tell them about it? I know it can be really intimidating, but you know, I'm American, so I will say you miss 100% of the shots you never take. Because oftentimes, like even in my early career, so I was at the International Center of Photography. I worked on the triennial. I was just an intern. But I had applied for a completely different internship at the museum. It was something that like I had no experience with. It was, you know, 1920s, like a conservation project for photography. And essentially the person who received my CV just looked at it and said, oh, this person is, you know, has contemporary art experience, and passed it along to their triennial. And so I ended up working on the triennial for a year. But that was only because I applied for something because I wanted, you know, the organization to know who I was rather than the role itself was perfect, you know? So I think you do have to try. And sometimes it'll be a stretch. Sometimes your proposal won't be perfectly catered to the museum, but it's really important to at least make a link and make it clear that you know what the museum is or what the foundation is about. Otherwise, you know, you're more likely to not receive a response. You have to personalize it for sure.
But do you think the artists, for example, also when I receive some portfolio, I see a lot of, for example, grammar mistakes and everything. Do you think the artists, especially in Croatia, where there is this language barrier, they have to be assisted with this? For example, we still don't have this thing in Croatia that, for example, you can have your art manager, someone who, or studio assistant, someone who helps you a lot. Do you think that's very important when you do portfolio, when you do the application? Because I also personally don't expect from each artist to speak fluently English, to be very acquainted with the, I don't know, InDesign, SketchUp and all these programs.
But I think it's also about knowing the really simple things that make a difference. Like, obviously, if someone's not a native English speaker, I'm not going to penalize them for it. And I would hope that no one penalizes me for my terrible Chinese. But I think, and it doesn't have to be, you know, the world's fanciest design either. But I think just something, you know, things like sending a Word document instead of a PDF file, you know, that like little things that show your professionalism make a big difference. So even if there were mistakes or even if there were issues, you know, that I don't think would matter so much, as long as, you know, the rest of it was done in a really professional way. And by professional, I mean, like, if you're going to send someone your portfolio, you should definitely write an email addressed to that person, not like a general email, but, you know, write an email with that person's name, maybe a short paragraph saying, oh, I thought that you might be interested in this. Please do let me know if there's any other information. And then your portfolio attached, even something that simple, you know, it's just having all of the like indicators of professionalism, even if there's like, you know, small grammar mistakes. I mean, that is not the end of the world. But I would also say that for proposals to bigger organizations, that might make more of a difference. And that's when it's really good to, you know, also have a larger network where you can lean on a friend for help with, you know, polishing an application, even if they too are not a native speaker, right? Because when you have like bigger applications, it's always good to have another pair of eyes. So that's where your network comes into play, that maybe another friend has won an artist grant before and could look at your application and give you feedback, even just on the content or the way that you can talk about your project to have success. So, I mean, I think that when we talk about professionalism, you know, it's really about the little things, and making sure that like the little things don't get in the way of your really good artwork or your really good idea, you know.
We're almost closing our 30 minutes time slot. I would like to welcome you really for sharing this very vast experience. And as I already mentioned before, I would like to link all the links and actually all the residences and all the important stuff that you said. And I will just write a short summary to all the artists. And also I will send an email to Leigh with all the contacts in order if you want to keep in touch, or in order if someone is more interested in Chinese or Asian art scene, you can freely email us. Thank you, Leigh, so much. And I hope you stay safe in Shanghai. I hope everything is going good now there.
Thanks, and stay safe in Croatia. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Naša sljedeća gošća na hrvatskom je stvarno već svima znana Vanja Žanko, jedna od zaista uspješnih, možemo tako reći, umjetničkih menadžerica i osoba koja se zaista razumije u sve institucionalne modele, rekla bih, od privatnog do javnog sektora, pa bih pozvala Vanju Žanko da nam se priključi.
Dobar dan svima.
Dobar dan. Vanja nam se javlja iz Berlina, tako?
Je, od kuće iz Berlina.
Ja sam Vanju osobno poznala kad smo već radili u Laubi, to je bilo davne 2012. godine, kad je ona onako detaljno sve organizirala i planirala, što mene zaista oduševilo, jer nekako nisam imala taj dojam u nekim možda muzejskim institucijama ranije, pa bi samo htjela ukratko proći jedan taj put karijerni, možemo tako reći, Vanje, od Hrvatske do današnjeg Berlina.
Dakle,
ukratko.
Može. Čini mi se da je jedna tema koja objedinjuje cijeli moj put zapravo briga o razvoju umjetničkih karijera, jer duboko vjerujem da uz umjetnički rad u studiju svaki umjetnik, kao i svaki drugi profesionalac, treba razvijati jednu ugodnu životnu karijeru kako bi se divno osjećao u cjelokupnom svijetu umjetnosti. I na neki način sam posvetila svoj život na način da mogu pomagati, asistirati umjetnicima i umjetnicama da u tome što bolje uspiju, da zapravo budu najbolja verzija sebe. I sve je krenulo nekom pukom slučajnošću i srećom da sam prvi posao zapravo dobila kod Tomislava Klička, kojeg vjerojatno danas svi znaju, jednog predivnog kolekcionara koji, kada sam ja diplomirala 2008. godine, baš kao i što je Leigh malo prije komentirala, koji je već tada skupljao i predivno skupljao hrvatsku umjetnost, ali nije još potpuno odredio koji je njegov ukus. I to je također razvijao godinama, dok nismo na kraju počeli zajedno i razvijati projekt Kuće Lauba, koje naravno i dan danas prekrasno radi. I kroz zapravo rad za Tomislava Klička sam postala svjesna ove neke misije koju bih htjela imati u životu i koliko mi je važno biti sa umjetnicima, biti okružena nadom koju nudi umjetnički rad i negdje iz pozadine stvarati strukture, infrastrukture i davati pomoć kako bi se mogla ostvariti jedna lijepa umjetnička karijera ili jedan lijepi umjetnički život za moje suradnike. I onda smo zapravo kroz neko vrijeme shvatili da u tom periodu rada za Laubu mi je trebalo malo više slobode da budem u dubljim odnosima sa umjetnicima čiji rad sam jako cijenila i s kojima sam radila već 10 godina i osjećala sam da im treba puno ozbiljnija i strukturiranija pomoć i zato sam osnovala udrugu Nomad u kojoj sam zajedno s Andrejom Šarić zapravo razvila neke strategije i aktivnosti za šačicu umjetnika za koje danas vjerujem da su među najboljim umjetnicima sa kojima sam ikad radila. I strategije koje smo tamo razvijali su možda nešto čemu ćemo najviše danas i razgovarati. I zatim sam prije gotovo 4 godine dobila priliku da se brinem o karijeri samo jednog umjetnika. I što je prekrasno jer mi se prvi puta pružila prilika sa poslom za Olafura Eliassona da radim u velikom kolektivu, u vrlo organiziranom kolektivu sa gotovo 100 ljudi u studiju, koji je jedna prekrasna prilika i za moj osobni rast i razvoj gdje mogu zapravo na puno različitih razina i sa ljudima iz puno različitih struka i različitih kulturnih pozadina učiti što znači stvarno živjeti u nekom međunarodnom svijetu umjetnosti danas. Nije baš bilo kratko.
Meni je zanimljiva ta riječ strategija, jer kad sam ja recimo također upotrebljavala u hrvatskom kontekstu, dosta umjetnika mi je reklo kako nikad nije razmišljao o tom nazivu uopće strategija koji nije nekako bio vezan prvotno uz umjetnički kontekst. Pa me zanima kada se pokrenula Nomad i kada se zapravo osvrnula tih nekoliko, odnosno šačicu umjetnika, koje si recimo strategije, koje su bile ključne, koje si stavila na prvo mjesto?
Naše strategije su proizašle iz jedne realne situacije. Naravno da smo u 10 godina rada skenirali točno što nedostaje, što je njima nedostajalo za značajan razvoj karijera. I tu smo vrlo jednostavno došli do toga da razvijamo aktivnosti koje se temelje na razvoju životopisa u smjeru koji omogućava umjetnicima da točno rade sa kustosima i institucijama s kojima žele u roku od, tada smo imali plan 4 godine. I onda smo shvatili da bi to postigli, da bi došli negdje gdje je svaki umjetnik ili umjetnica zamislio, imamo vrlo jednostavan način razvoja aktivnosti. Jedna aktivnost je bila prijave za financiranje produkcije radova i produkcije izložbi, uglavnom za početak u nacionalnom kontekstu, a zatim u internacionalnom kontekstu. Druga aktivnost je bila prijava na rezidencijalne programe, koji su nam bili važni i radi razvoja životopisa, ali i radi upoznavanja ljudi sa vrlo sličnim senzibilitetima s kojima se dalje opet u životu može razvijati dijalog i karijera. Treća aktivnost je bila prijavljivanje na grupne izložbe, koje smo vrlo kasno zapravo i otkrili i shvatili da postoji cijeli niz međunarodnih grupnih izložbi koji imaju jednostavno otvorene prijave. I četvrta aktivnost je bila prijavljivanje na međunarodne nagrade. U stvari su one sve nekako međusobno prožete i zato su zanimljive jer je suština i početak rada na bilo koje od ovih prijava bila da svaki umjetnik ili umjetnica stvarno može imati jednu nadu i zamisliti vlastitu budućnost i gdje želi biti za 3, 4 ili 5 godina. Iz te nade i te vjere u budućnost su zapravo proizašli svi natječaji. Jer smo mi pisali sa stanovišta istinske vjere da ćemo tamo biti. I zato je taj posao bio jako jednostavan. Jer kad neko shvati gdje pripada, gdje želi pripadati, gdje želi ići u svijetu umjetnosti, sve ostalo je vrlo lako posložiti na papiru. I ta nada nas je držala da se ne obeshrabrujemo, baš kao što ste malo prije spomenule. Na primjer, kada smo počeli raditi prijave, 1 u 10 prijava prolazila. Ali nakon 2 godine stalnog rada i popravljanja i boljeg iščitavanja zapravo natječaja i boljeg iščitavanja što umjetnici koji su išli sličnim putem su radili ili što te institucije su do sada radile, mi smo uspjeli doći do otprilike uspješnosti 1 na 3 prijave. Tako da ovo kako ste malo prije spomenule, to je stvarno jedan skill. To je nešto što se uči jednako kao što se uči bilo što drugo u životu. I zapravo ono čega smo mi krenuli je definiranje koje su te ključne vrijednosti, ključni pojmovi za svakog umjetnika ili umjetnicu. I po tim ključnim pojmovima smo istraživali sve moguće natječaje koje smo našli online. Znači nije bila nikakva prevelika filozofija. Sve smo na početku nalazili online, jer ni mi nismo imali neki ogroman network izvan Hrvatske. I prijavljivali smo se isključivo na ona mjesta, u one institucije, na one rezidencijalne programe gdje smo smatrali da će se umjetnici osjećati dobro, gdje će se družiti sa ljudima koji dijele iste vrijednosti i s kojima mogu dalje razvijati karijere. Tako da nismo pucali u prazno, stvarno smo prijavljivali tamo gdje bi željeli biti. I mislim da je to zato i donijelo tako prekrasne rezultate. I naravno bili smo svjesni da je pripadnost svijetu umjetnosti jedan život i to nije nikakva kratkoročna strategija i zato ju ja zovem strategijom. Možemo ju zvati životom. Za mene stvaranje umjetničke karijere je jednako kao i gradnja života.
A zanima me kad si rekla recimo da se svi programi moraju na kraju individualizirati, odnosno da s umjetnicima je vrlo važno komunicirati gdje žele biti za 3-4 godine. Koliko je jednostavno zapravo tako neku jasnu viziju, koliko je njima točno važno je iskristalizirati gdje se mogu nalaziti, jer je problem pogotovo sa možda nekim mlađim umjetnicima što oni još nisu ni svjesni koje mogućnosti postoje, recimo i tih rezidencijalnih programa, sad recimo nekih kineskih možda rezidencija koje smo sada poslušali. Ili također imaš ti koja im otvara te neke nove mogućnosti, nove poglede?
Zapravo svako može krenuti od nečega što poznaje. Netko možda poznaje umjetnike ili umjetnici koji su mu bili uzor u zadnjih 10 godina i pogledati njihove životopise, gdje su oni izlagali, s kim su oni radili i vidjeti da li je to neki put te nekih ranih karijera i koje su to institucije koje vrlo slično razmišljaju ili rade. Svako će u životu te vrijednosti kontinuirano i mijenjati. Naravno da neko neće cijeli život stremiti istome i naravno da će se zato ti portfoliji i prijave mijenjati svaki godinu, dvije. To je isto živa materija. Ali i ona se uvijek može, ona ne mora biti fiksna, ne moramo je se bojati, ona se uvijek može mijenjati, ali je važno da ju imamo. Jer ako ju nemamo uopće, nemamo o čemu razgovarati. Čak i da je loša, kako bi rekla, čak ako je loša, možda i nudi više mogućnosti za dijalog, jer tu tek kreće rasprava o tome kako učiniti nešto bolje. Tako da se ja ne bih bojala staviti na papir vlastite tegove, vlastite uzore, vlastite sve, kako bi rekla, sve što te mentalno okružuje u životu, što te inspirira, staviti na papir i vidjeti kako s tim doći negdje dalje. I te vrijednosti se naravno da se mogu mijenjati i da nisu fiksne i da se za godinu dana može uspostaviti da možda nisi htio ići na 4 rezidencije, a su ti rezidencije užasno dosadne i u biti želiš biti doma i nastaviti akademsku karijeru. To je isto ok. Iskustva zapravo je nemoguće odrediti šta je stvarno pravi put za nekoga.
Da, ako ne, mislim ova stara uzreka dok ne probaš i ne znaš zapravo. A ti si isto bila jedna, možemo tako reći, prvih tih pionira koja je nekako uspijevala spojiti umjetnike sa jednim privatnim kontekstom. Pa me zanima, u Hrvatskoj nekako kada govorimo o privatnom kontekstu umjetnosti, često nailazimo na nekakvu negativnu reakciju, posebice možda iz akademske i muzejske zajednice. Pa što misliš, je li se tijekom vremena od kad si pokrenula Nomad do sada nekako promijenila ta situacija? Jesu li ljudi malo počeli više uočavati prednosti privatnog konteksta i možda maknuti taj jedan negativni predznak koji ih je pratio ranije u njihovoj percepciji?
Možeš mi samo pojasniti koji je stvarno negativan predznak?
Recimo kada se govori što se tiče termina privatno tržište, onda možda privatne tvrtke možda koje podupiru umjetnike što se tiče uopće tog nekog korporativnog konteksta ili uopće slučaje kolekcionara privatnih u hrvatskoj umjetnosti, nekako često imamo i negativne možda reakcije na to.
A ja sam krenula iz tog privatnog sektora, tako da mi je to teško reći. Ja bih rekla da iz mog iskustva da nije bilo Klička, ne bi bilo mene ovdje danas. Tako da mi je to teško reći. To bi možda neko ko je u javnom sektoru ili u muzejskom institucionalnom kontekstu pametnije obrazložio. Za mene bez sinergije svih sektora ne postoji neka mogućnost održivog razvoja karijera umjetnika. Ono što je zanimljivo da još uvijek ne postoji zakonodavni okvir prema kojemu bi kupovina umjetnina bila ujedno i porezna olakšica. Tako da se ne radi o tome da u Hrvatskoj imamo manje sofisticirane ljude ili manje educirane ili manje zainteresirane za umjetnost nego u, na primjer, Sjedinjenim Američkim Državama. Radi se o tome da ne postoji zakonodavni okvir kojim se podupire kupovina umjetnina.
Da, postoji za kao programe ili fondacije ili nešto unutar korporativnog smisla, ali ne postoji baš konkretno za kupovinu.
Da, ne postoji za kolekcionare, tako je. Ili
za privatne više zapravo za privatne subjekte u smislu tvrtki, ali ne i za fizičke osobe.
Ne postoji ni za tvrtke?
Ne, nego za tvrtke postoji u smislu tog zapravo kulturnih programa i podupiranja nekih primjerice programa u smislu, mi smo recimo kad su imali neke kulturne programe, onda bi nam tvrtke podupirale, ali kad se tiče recimo baš izričito kupovine, onda ne postoji ni kod privatnih, ni kod fizičkih osoba.
Ok, je. Tako da je divno da ovaj program radimo unutar Hrvatskog društva likovnih umjetnika koje može utjecati na zakonodavstvo u Hrvatskoj.
A što bi recimo preporučila uopće umjetnicima koji tek počinju, recimo sad smo se baš dotakli salona mladih i umjetnika koji se tek pojavljuju na nekoj sceni i možemo tako reći nekom već ustanovljenom tržištu u Hrvatskoj, koji bi njihov bio pristup, znači kako uopće doći do takvih nekih kontakata. Rekli smo naravno, sa Leigh smo pričali da je itekako važan networking, ali kako u Hrvatskoj ostvariti taj networking?
Obzirom da se sve događa online, pogotovo uslijed ove pandemije, u idućih godinu dana će još izrazitije cijela djelatnost prijava biti online. To je čak za nas iz Hrvatske i neka sreća, jer smo sad napokon otprilike u jednakoj poziciji kao i svi drugi. Tako da bi ja rekla da je ovo idealno vrijeme započeti doslovno istraživati rezidencijalne programe, grupne izložbe i nagrade i jednostavno se početi prijavljivati. Obzirom da je trenutno toliko smanjena fizička aktivnost u institucijama, ima daleko više online programa i prijava. I oni su divni zato što omogućavaju da se bez neke traume uči i prijavljuje. I zato je ovo možda čak i najbolje vrijeme. Ova godina i možda još iduća godina je stvarno idealna čak za umjetnike koji tek kreću i koji možda nemaju ogromno iskustvo niti network, jer su sad svi u jednakoj poziciji i niko ne može ići na otvorenja, na večere, na druženja i na širenje networka. Svi su u istoj poziciji, uključujući umjetnike s kojima sam ja radila, umjetnika s kojim sad radim i sve vas s kojima sad pričam. Znači, svi smo u istoj poziciji. Tako da bi ja rekla da je ovo idealni trenutak za to upotrijebiti i prijavljivati se bez ikakvog straha, baš kao što je Leigh rekla, iskoristiti ovaj trenutak da postaneš najbolja verzija sebe.
A kada ste recimo vi slali prijave, zanima me uopće filtracija nekih prijava. Jeste li se konkretno fokusirali na možda više europski kontekst ili američki, ili ste išli možda izvan na okolne kontinente?
Mi smo se mogli prijavljivati samo na hrvatskom, engleskom i talijanskom jeziku, tako da se u nekim kontekstima uopće nismo mogli prijavljivati. Ali mislim da je to uglavnom otvaralo gotovo gotovo cijelo svjetsko tržište prijava i ono što je važno je da stvarno nismo prijavljivali bilo šta. Prijavljivali smo samo ono što je stvarno bilo duboko povezano s vrijednostima umjetnika ili umjetnice koji prijavljujemo. Jer je tih mogućnosti i prilika jednostavno inače previše i gotovo da postaje besmisleno prijavljivati se za sve. Svako mora pripadati nekom određenom dijelu svijeta umjetnosti i u tom dijelu svijeta umjetnosti djelovati. I što prije kroz te prijave mentalno i emocionalno umjetnik ili umjetnica shvati ko je to svijet umjetnosti, to će biti lakše u budućnosti razvijati karijeru.
Da, jer mislim da i same institucije koje primaju prijave, mislim da je njima isto lako razlučiti koje su prijave itekako targetirane i kao što smo rekli, inače ako se netko bavi možda nekim eksperimentalnim radovima koji uključuju biologiju, kemiju, fiziku i ako se izričito za tu instituciju prijavi s nekim konceptom, možda suradnjom ili prilikom za produkciju, mislim da je dosta vidljivo odmah na početku vidjeti koje su prijave, kao što smo rekli, točno ciljane, a koji su zapravo poslane onako u jednom batchu, što bismo rekli.
Da, ja mislim samo ciljane prijave, sve ostalo je pucanje prazno. I šta još, samo da se prisjetim,
možemo se opet osvrnuti koliko je važno recimo umjetnicima kad se tu prijavljuju također da imaju neki support. Primjerice od kustosa ili nekoga možda tko se već prijavljivao ili da, ili kao što smo rekli, možda tih gramatičkih, jednostavno nekakvih zapravo barijera jezika do uopće barijera nekog koncipiranja portfolija.
A je kao i sve u životu, vjerujem da i u ovom slučaju su puno bolji rezultati sa kolektivnim radom. To i je jedan od razloga zašto smo osnovali udrugu i mi smo u toj udruzi čak i svi snosili jednake rizike i posljedice. Tako da kada bismo dobili na natječaju neki iznos, 20% iznosa smo vraćali u hladni pogon udruge da možemo i dalje djelovati i razvijati programe, jer vrlo često naravno tu su bili silni sati nenaplativog rada. I to isto, to me u stvari dovodi do sljedećeg zaključka do kojeg smo došli, a to je da je stvarno disciplina nužna u tom razvoju karijere. I jednako kao što je neko disciplinirano otići svaki dan u studiju i raditi na svom umjetničkom radu, treba stvoriti navike, discipline u neko doba dana, baviti se svojom karijerom. Svako će znati za sebe da li je to jedan puta u tjednu cijeli dan ili je to svaki dan 1 sat, ili to ujutro ili navečer, svako će osjetiti svoj ritam, ali je jako važno zadržati jednaku disciplinu kao u razvoju umjetničkog rada.
A kad se kaže disciplina, znači možemo također razmišljati o tome da možda je najbolje dosta umjetnika, kao što je rekla Leigh, možda ona nekad vidi neke umjetnike pa zaboravi gdje ih je vidjela, tako isto dosta umjetnika vidi neke rezidencije ili neke super programe, ali ih ne selektira, znači ne napravi neki raspored. Tako da je vrlo važno biti u toj disciplini i tim kreiranjima navika također biti dobro organiziran, imati primjerice na kompjuteru uopće selektirane znači stranice gdje bi se inače prelivali i redovito ih ažurirati, jer nikad ne znate kad biste zapravo mogli naći na konkretnu neku temu koja vas zanima i gdje biste se mogli prijaviti.
Pa postoje jako jednostavni alati. Mi smo uglavnom koristili iCalendar jer je bilo vrlo jednostavno unijeti čak i datume za stare natječaje koje smo možda i promašili tijekom naše godine ili tijekom prošle godina i onda bi ih stavili u kalendar sa reminderom za sljedeću godinu da na vrijeme pogledamo. I to se čini smiješno, ali za godinu, dve rada na taj način se stvara ogromna baza neprocjenjivih podataka i kao drugo zapravo se razvija jedan novi sistem u kojem i međusobno možemo umjetnici i umjetnicima pomagati kao kolege i prisjetiti se da nešto što možda više i nije u njegovom ili njenom skupu vrijednosti je sad postalo zanimljivo za nekog drugog. I ta razmjena ideja oko prilika za razvoj karijera je jednako važna kao i razmjena ideja u načinu razvoja umjetničkog rada.
Da, mislim da je to ili spomenula, recimo, kada se prijavila za taj internship, znači nije dobila za fotografski department što je tražila, ali su je spojili onda sa Triennalom, budući da je ona završila suvremenu umjetnost. Tako da je uvijek važno to što si rekla, uvijek imati napomenu, znači čak i ako nije za jednog umjetnika nešto prilagođeno, možda odmah imati drugog umjetnika u vidu za to.
A i bilo je zanimljivo tvoje pitanje vezano uz jezik. Ono što sam ja trenutno isto naučila radeći u ovom ogromnom međunarodnom kontekstu gdje u studiju imamo ljude iz 26 zemalja, je da većini ljudi u poslovnom svijetu engleski nije materinji jezik.
Da, više to je international.
Da. Apsolutno se niko sa time ne zamara, već kao i sa svime u životu, samo je važno biti što precizniji i što srdačniji. Tako da razina jezika vas nikoga, mislim čak ni mene više ne obeshrabruje.
Da. Mislim, ja sam to rekla izričito recimo u kontekstu kada recimo pravite stranice ili tako neki medij dugoročni koji ćete koristiti. Mislim da opet ipak važno možda konzultirati nekoga da vam to pregleda, jer nekako opet tu vidite, pokazujete zapravo kolika vam je ta važnost stranice i koliko je važnost vama prezentirati sebe u dobrom svjetlu. Jer ako imate godinu dana jednu stranicu sa milijun grešaka, nekako ne osjećam da ste to baš ažurirali konkretno. Htjela bih te također pitati što se tiče uopće Hrvatske, recimo mi smo umjetnicima bismo zapravo htjeli preporučiti možda i neke privatne, korporacijski dio, znači koji bi su recimo to neke najvažnije tvrtke u Hrvatskoj koje se mladih pokazali do 35 godina.
To je odlično pitanje. Kako sam van tog konteksta sad nekih 4 godine, moram priznati da nemam aktualnu listu, ali obzirom da ćemo svi ostati u kontaktu nakon ovog predavanja, složit ću listu pa ću vam ju poslati. Iako ja ne brala distinkciju između hrvatskog i međunarodnog uopće, nego bi samo radila distinkciju, kao što sam spomenula, u smislu vrijednosti koje dijeliš sa nekim. Budem napravila nekoliko lista pa ću poslati.
Ti si također u radu Nomada nekako stavila naglasak na početku, nekako formiranje i povezivanje više te umjetničke scene unutar konteksta jugoistočne Europe. Što je zanimljivo jer nekako osjećam da mi možda i nismo tako povezani s nekim scenama zemalja koji su nam zaista u blizini, s kojima ne postoji uopće ta jezična barijera. Što misliš, li se to možda poboljšava s vremenom i bismo li na tome trebali više raditi?
Pa, meni se čini da je sada to jedna vrlo jednostavna razmjena i puno aktivnija nego što je bila nekada. I čini mi se da je jedan od razloga tome što smo zapravo svi u nekim vrlo sličnim tranzicijskim izazovima i posttranzicijskim izazovima, tako da dijelimo jednake izazove u organizaciji, u financiranju i u razmišljanju uopće što je svijet umjetnosti danas. I to razmišljanje možda nužno ne možemo uopće podijeliti u nekim razvijenim sjevernoameričkim ili zapadnoeuropskim sustavima. I zapravo u njima bi trebali sudjelovati iz potpuno jednog drugog rakursa. Tako da kada pričamo o tome da svako treba raditi u području u kojem se osjeća ugodno, ja sam se tada jako osjećala ugodno u tom kontekstu. Jer sam razvijala odnose i projekte sa ljudima s kojima sam bila u nekoj vrsti sinergije bez puno objašnjavanja i moram reći da sam tada i osjećala jako puno empatije u radu sa kolegama. I to je tada meni bio životni princip i meni to tada bilo životno važno. Tako da ako neko osjeća da mu je to u životu važno, ja bih svakako rekla da to je jedan prekrasan svijet za razvoj karijera i vrlo jednostavan sa tog poimanja povijesnog kulturnog konteksta i današnjeg nekog operativnog konteksta.
Da, posebice, recimo, primijetila sam se u Zagrebu, postoje te inicijative muzeja, što se tiče baš velikih nacionalnih muzeja, posebice suvremene umjetnosti, za suradnju s većim muzejima, bilo u Bosni i Hercegovini, Srbiji i Makedoniji, tako da vidim da nekako ta tendencija opet raste. No, međutim, smatram da bi se itekako neprofitni sektor, odnosno neprofitne organizacije ili umjetničke organizacije također trebale više povezivati, posebice zato što primjerice u Beogradu je suvremena scena itekako buja i nekako su isto također dobro povezani s europskom i američkom scenom, tako da bi to i rezultiralo nekim većim umrežavanjem ne samo u kontekstu jugoistočne Europe, već i celokupne Europe i izvan kontinenta.
A to je sad više razgovor o nekim institucionalnim praksama, ja mislim, nego o umjetničkim karijerama. I to je isto pitanje u kojoj mjeri se ljudi žele samo organizirati kao što smo se mi samo organizirali kroz Udrugu Nomad, a koliko žele samostalno razvijati vlastitu umjetničku karijeru. Iz mog iskustva većina umjetnika jednostavno zbog prirode rada, individualnog rada na vlastitom umjetnosti i razvijaju vlastite individualne karijere i manje su možda u tom nekom kolektivnom, kako bi rekla, institucionalnom radu. Naravno da kroz razvoj karijere i kroz jedan životni trenutak u kojem je neko uspješan, onda može pomoći drugima i na taj način stvarati neku vrstu kolektiviteta. Ali za mlade umjetnike ja mislim da je ipak fokus na vlastitom, na shvaćanju neke vlastite vrijednosti, na brušenju tog talenta i da se onda u jednom trenu kada netko zaista dođe do razine gdje može podijeliti svoje znanje, svoje znanje, informacije i mrežu, onda ju vraća kolektivu. Ali u trenu kad se neko gradi, možda i nema kapaciteta.
Da. Mislim da je problem, recimo, to neko samostalno radu, što opet umjetnici, naravno, koji svi ljudi imaju drugčije osobnosti. Znači, netko koji je možda više introspektivan i koji je nekako zatvoreniji, kojemu nije tek tako lakše prići, njemu je itekako važnije možda taj neki kolektivni support u njihovom tom razvoju karijera.
Slažem se.
Kako misliš sada, recimo, radeći u Berlinu, što misliš zapravo o berlinskoj sceni i njihovom funkcioniranju? Znamo je tamo Berlin, naravno, kako je International sad Art Hub, da dosta umjetnika zapravo međunarodnih pozadina dolazi tu živjeti. Misliš li da je tu, recimo, uopće pred covidovsko vrijeme, možemo reći, koliko su važni ti događaji, stalni eventi, seminari, diskusije za uopće upoznavanje, ali nekako i za razvijanje te nekakve mentalne slike same u sebi, u svom stvaranju, ali nekako daljnjoj razvoju u karijeri?
Izuzetno je važno i zanimljivo je da ljudi koji žive i rade u Berlinu nisu nužno toliko vezani uz berlinsku umjetničku scenu. Život i rad u Berlinu je dosta jednostavan jer i dalje život nije skup, a jako inspirativan i dinamičan. Tako da otprilike s nekim prihodima s kojima se živi u Zagrebu može se lijepo živjeti u Berlinu, a biti ipak na nekom izvoru možda nekih drugih dinamika. Ne kažem da je jedno bolje od drugog, ali kažem da je jako zanimljivo da ga ljudi često koriste iz tog razloga kao svoju bazu. Tako da puno umjetnika ovdje djeluje isto tako na međunarodnoj razini i onda kad se desi neka situacija kao što je sada bila pandemija, kao što se desilo da su se morali zatvoriti svi klubovi, onda je prekrasno znati da postoji ta snažna zajednica koja samu sebe podupire. Bilo je nekoliko jako zanimljivih inicijativa tijekom ove godine, tako da su se umjetnici samo organizirali u jednoj inicijativi koja se zvala Solidarity 2020, gdje su stavili grafike u beskonačnoj ediciji, besplatno ih dali u tu inicijativu Solidarity 2020, koja se zatim obratila svim klubovima i teatrima koji su se zatvorili i koji su onda izabrali umjetnike koji će ih predstavljati. I svako je kupovinom jedne grafike za 50 eura financirao daljnji rad te institucije. Tako da se stvorio cijeli taj jedan ipak zatvoreni koji su umjetnici vratili toj sceni na neki način što ih je podupirala godinama. Drugo što se dogodilo, jako isto zanimljivo, je sa zatvaranjem klubova od strane klubske scene. Klubovi su se otvorili kao mjesta, kao izložbeni prostori. Tako da u tom smislu je dinamika nevjerojatna i ljudi koji su i povremeno bili u Berlinu, a ne stalno, i dalje smatraju da je to njihov neki grad inspiracije i dalje u njega vraćaju. I to je, ja mislim, zapravo na kraju bit cijelog svijeta umjetnosti. Biti na sceni što duže i živjeti na njoj što ljepše, da se na kraju ipak u tu scenu može i vraćati.
Da. Mislim da bi ovo bila zaista jedna divna zaključna rečenica našeg razgovora. Vanja, zaista ti hvala na dijeljenju svih ovih savjeta. Također, kao što smo rekli, kao i svi, napisat ćemo sve kontakte i naravno sve ideje. Ja sam također tu zabilježavala. Tako da bismo te htjeli pozdraviti. Naravno da ćeš ti sad s nama malo i ostati. A sljedeća naša sugovornica je Simone Sental, jedna zaista divna osoba koja vodi cijelu kolekciju Thyssen-Bornemisza Art Contemporary fondaciji. To je fondaciju koju je prvotno osnovala Francesca Thyssen-Bornemisza, kolekcionarka. Bila je potaknuta na početku što je htjela kupiti jedan rad umjetnice, no međutim umjetnica nije htjela prodati to za jednu privatnu kolekciju, znači nije htjela da se rad zapravo zatvori nekakve privatne zidove jedne kuće, nego je htjela da nastavi živjeti putem nekih izložbi, putem nekih programa fondacije, tako da su oni tada odlučili osnovati TBA21 fondaciju koja osim zapravo commissioning, znači osim kupnje radova, oni također rade i na promidžbi nekih suvremenih tema, posebice tijekom sada platforme Oceans nove, gdje povezivaju umjetnike sa znanstvenicima, sa zapravo drugčijim pozadinama znanstvenika, pisaca, pjesnika, gdje imamo jedan interdisciplinarni pristup umjetnosti, što mislim da je itekako značajno u našem suvremenom svijetu. Simone, can we hear you?
Yes, you can.
I just gave a small introduction in Croatia, but since you've been working also in Croatia, I guess you're fluent by now.
I understood the most important, TBA21, Commissioning Interdisciplinary Ocean Academy.
Exactly, and Francesca's. We're talking with Simone Sental. As I already said, she's the head of collection at the Thyssen-Bornemisza Art Contemporary. She's currently based in Vienna, but since they have a very international program of exhibiting and also showing their artworks in a lot of different contexts, she's also working in a lot of different international places. So as we did with the previous speakers, I would just like you to give us a short introduction about the organization, but also about your background and what's your job description in the context of the foundation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so as Jelena, thank you very much for the invitation, by the way. As she already said, I'm working for Thyssen-Bornemisza Art Contemporary. I am head of collection. I'm already there since 10 years, which I honestly never thought I would, but we are changing so much, so there's no way to get comfortable. Francesca Thyssen-Bornemisza has founded TBA21 in 2002. And she actually saw a work by the artist Janet Cardiff. It's called To Touch. And she wanted to acquire it, and the artist refused. And she was completely irritated, you know. She's like coming from this tradition of collectors. Her father has this fantastic museum, or like at least it used to be her father's private collection. Now it's a state-owned collection in Madrid, the Thyssen Museum. So she was completely irritated that someone would refuse to sell something to her. And then Janet Cardiff explained to her that this work is extremely important to her. And she'd rather not sell to a private collector because of the risk to flip it. You know, it's like private collectors, there are a lot of collectors who buy and then monitor the market and go for the first option to sell it via an auction house and make a profit. And then Francesca said, okay, what do you want me to do so that I can purchase this work? And Jenna said, well, you got to have then something solid. So Francesca called her lawyers, created TBA 21. And then she called up Janet and said, now, you selling me this piece now? And Janet said, yes, she did. So out of this came a beautiful exhibition, which I think it was maybe the first one in Vienna with Janet Cardiff, that she made in cooperation with the Academy of Applied Arts, and The Beautiful Friendship. And I think that's also very important for our chairwoman, is that all the relations she has are very personal, and she tries to walk away together, I would say. My job is now to make sure that works by Janet Cardiff are in perfect condition whenever they travel, whenever they are exhibited, and also with the works like hers, which are time sensitive or have various media, to connect with the artist, discuss if there needs to be an update, discuss if things kind of deteriorate in a way they maybe should not. And yeah, I'm very happy there, I have to say.
You mentioned that for the first exhibition you cooperated with the institution, and I see this pattern of the working of the foundation. Every year I think you have at least one exhibition where you try to establish this link between a private foundation and the institution. How important is for you to have this institutional link related to your foundation?
I think for us it's extremely important. I mean, even though we used to run a space in Vienna, like going abroad, having the possibility to communicate opens up a completely different field. And interestingly, also in Dubrovnik was the first exhibition that we had abroad. I think it was in 2003. Yes. And then 2-3 years ago, we had the second exhibition with the museum in Dubrovnik. And it was super beautiful because we connected it to a smaller exhibition on an island in an old monastery. And it brings so much more than just exhibiting or just staying in your small framework. It's like also what we also sometimes do, we had an exhibition in Mexico, and then the curator there organized studio visits. We got to know different artists, different other curators through talks, and that's also super important. You can't get that if you just stay at home.
Yeah,
like now.
I think the basis of your foundation, which I found extremely helpful and also very important in today's context, it's this basis on the discussions all the time. Also in Olafur, I think I already, when I was inviting all the participants to join this discussion, I sent you some links about the foundation, but also about the Olafur. Francesca Thyssen-Bornemisza, she had it restored. It's been almost 20 years the restoration took process, and also this monastery, the Franciscan monastery island, it was actually a place where you had a lot of, for example, architectural, a lot of artist discussions, where a lot of people from different backgrounds, but also from different countries, they would come and they would share the experience. And I think it was very important, and being isolated in this context, in this island, and to focus completely on this topic, I think it created a lot of collaborations. And I think also collaborations are somehow the basis also of this foundation, because you do not also focus only at the artists, but also on collaboration between interdisciplinary fields.
Absolutely. I mean, there are two, at the moment we have two, I would say, big cooperations. One is with the Museo Thyssen in Spain now, where we have 2 exhibitions a year. And the other one is through a project that has been launched 10 years ago, which is the TBA 21 Academy. And this is very focused on ocean research, but not only ocean research with, it's a cross-reference between science and art. And this is something that our foundation is also from the beginning on, it was more architecture and art. One of the results is the pavilion by Olafur Eliasson and David AJ, now with his hopefully permanent home on Lopud Island. And now it's more marine biology and art, I would say. And this is kind of the strength of the TBA 20. Called, how do you say? The expedition leader, which is, for example, Yuz Martinez. And Yuz Martinez invited all her students to be part of this research and part of this voyage. So they go on the boat, have a 14 days of intense research on this boat, go diving, talk to oceans researchers, and then they have like new input to also be creative. I think she's now also curating the first show at Ocean Space, which we run in Venice, which hopefully opens in March.
And
but I forgot about that. That is also another cooperation we have with Ocean Space.
That's also another perspective. The foundation is also targeting some places that are a bit, for example, this Franciscan monastery in Dubrovnik, or on the island of Lopud, has been abandoned for almost 100 years. And also this space, Ocean Space in Venice, in the northern part in Venice, was also not on the map, for example, we can say, of the Biennale map or all these art events map in Venice. And now it's one of the actually nucleuses of the Venice events.
I mean, like the what's it called? The Ocean Space used to be the Mexican pavilion for a couple of years, but then they started digging again and were looking for Marco Polo's grave. And there's a huge hole, so you can see through the canals. And so it was blocked for a couple of years there. And so it was a lot of time first to restore the space, make it waterproof, no more rain, and close the huge hole.
It's always a challenge in Venice. I would also like to focus when you said Francesca, she has been collecting since this 2002, actually, since she bought the work by Jenny Griffith. And afterwards, I was wondering about the pattern of the commissioning. Do you have, for example, Leigh, she was telling that they are also experts, advisors to detect the main collectors, but also she said that they're visiting a lot of art exhibitions, that they're having applications received from a lot of different international artists. And I was wondering, is there like a rule of commissioning of the Thyssen-Bornemisza contemporary art, or is there actually the main founder, the collector, who is giving actually the final word?
Well, with us, it's definitely the main founder. It's our chairwoman who's driving TBA 21 and also the interest. And you can also see with her interest how it changes. It's like at the beginning, she was very interested in architecture. So she created, or she commissioned Olafur and David AJ with the pavilion. She worked with Matthew Ritchie and Arup on a 17-ton metal structure that hosts a 47-channel audio installation, which is now donated to the ZKM. So that was her first interest. Then it went into social political, I would say. And then it went into oceanic, and now she is out of the pandemic. She originally we had an exhibition in Madrid, and she wanted to invite some artists for performative interventions, and due to the pandemic this couldn't take place. And what she now has created is stage. So she commissions artists for web-based works because she sees that this is apparently, or at the moment, unfortunately, the only way to show and create artworks. So this is, I think she has commissioned about 10 artists now. And this is also a collaborative platform together with Coach in India and I think Coach is participating, and NTU. and what's this, Jose Roca's institution Flora in Colombia. So it's also a collaboration and very much focused on, on the possibility to still showcase art and produce art. Luckily, then on a very short base came the invitation from the Museo Thyssen to transfer this exhibition into real and open it in Madrid. So Stage has now, from the web, also become an exhibition, which is actually now also on view in Madrid.
Mm-hmm. But that's very interesting to also to have in mind, because when we talk with Vanja Žanko in Croatian, but we said that it's very important to be organized when you want to, for the artists, when they want to develop their career, and always to have like some kind of list of the residences, museums, of the organizations that they are interested in. It's interesting to see how also the taste and how the collections and how their missions, they tend to change. For example, as you said with Francesca, from the primer focus of being exclusively focused on the architecture, now we have more performance artists, which is very important, because we can say that for the performance artists, it's very hard to reach the not the art scene, but for example the art market, because it's not really, it's actually the hardest thing to in the end to sell to someone.
That's correct. But well, what can I say? No, I can't. Yeah, you're right.
I was also wondering, you have in your collection, you have also some Croatian artists, and can you maybe tell us more how this collaboration and how this commissioning happened, and in what context?
Yeah, gosh, now you really put me on my wrong foot, because we never commissioned a Croatian artist.
Yeah,
huh?
You had, for example, some photos of Antun Maracic as the part of the collection.
Yeah, but they are in the collection. They were in the collection, unfortunately, already there when I came. So I'm not 100% sure how this happened. But I can assume that Francesca is very interested in Dubrovnik. And I think from after her first trip, shortly after the war, when she also started to raise money for restoration of the roofs, and also organized trainings for local conservators. And I assume that she met him there, because that's the way she often approaches new acquisitions, by personal meetings.
Mm-hmm. That's why it's important also to participate to these discussions and these workshops. And I was wondering if you can elaborate more on how to, for example, how to apply to this workshop. Is it something that you said at the Stage, for example, your new project? I see it's present everywhere on the social media, and the artists, they can apply. But I was wondering for the other workshops that are mainly theme-based, is there always the same way how to apply, or you always want to use the different pattern of applying for each of the project?
You mean like, for example, for Lopud Symposium?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Lopud Symposium was the first time that we opened it, when we also had the exhibition there in Dubrovnik and in Lopud. Usually it's a closed session, and it's more or less a way of bringing together various minds which are important to us, leading us into the future. So I'm not sure. I hope we'll continue, and I hope we will also do it like the last time, that we have some closed session and some open sessions. Mm-hmm. But and for Stage, we have a curator in Spain now. She's Soledad Gutierrez, and yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I think she just started working with us a year ago, so she's probably very much on her network. But I can ask her how she expects to receive applications. I mean, what I know is that we very much drive on different curators, on the experience of the curators, and we very much drive also at the moment by Chus Martinez network. Mm-hmm. And she's running this art school in Basel, and she opened a small exhibition space in Basel. With the artists that she's working with, and I think she's creating a really good network here.
Mm-hmm. And the applications you receive, are they primarily applications from the artists, and you also have like from some collective, also from the curators, as you have like, for example, one curatorial concept that is being applied to?
Yeah, we get either invitations to collaborate, which is right now by Deus Lot, And it's a very interesting project. It's going to happen in Ljubljana, hopefully in January. And his project is that he has invited several private collectors and also private institutions for one exhibition in at the City Museum in Ljubljana to research like how collectors and how collection behave. So I'm super curious. We are invited with the stage. So part of the exhibition that we now have in Madrid will go to Ljubljana. And we're super curious of how he will look at us, and we will dissect it for the first time. It's not only the artist, it's us.
But I think it's very important. For example, Ljubljana it's really not that far away from Zagreb. It's like 1 hour trip. But I think it's very important to encourage the Croatian artists also to travel and to spread their networking. And also when we have an exhibition such as this by Tej Logar, which will be a very massive exhibition. I think he was working almost like 5 years on it. I think it's very important also for the Croatian artists to somehow to force themselves and also to visit other art exhibitions or the art spaces, I don't know, Biennale of Venice, or just to get in touch with the people, because in the end, you never know how this networking, it might help in the end with the recommendations.
No, absolutely. I completely agree. Unfortunately, like networking is not my strength, but I can see how much you improve your career by doing that. And also in Vienna, you can see that there are a lot of younger galleries now with Johnny Manhattan, Lisa Kandelhofer, and also spaces run by independent spaces run by curators like Kevin Space, and they have changed the scene enormously. And what I realized that when you start young, you always aim for someone who's already in one position or the other. But it's actually your generation that you grow with, and it's your generation that you also network with. And
can you maybe give us some more information about the Vienna context? Because we know galleries, they tend to focus on the local art scene or the regional art scene. But how's the situation in Vienna when they think in terms of the regional art scene? Do they also include Croatia, or they rather focus on the surrounding countries in terms of Italy, Germany speaking maybe countries?
Good question. I think they are in the meantime all super international. There is no gallery left focusing really on Austrian art, I would say. But we have Vienna Fair, Vienna Contemporary, and that's an art fair that has repositioned itself in the last 10 years, maybe as really a hub for a Central European art and galleries. But I would not say that any galleries is still really I think you can't do that anymore anyway. Like, because even also as a gallery, like what we do is cooperate with other museums, cooperate with other collectors, and galleries cooperate with other galleries and try to expand their network.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also very crucial to mention this Vienna Art Contemporary, because also a lot of Croatian artists, they don't maybe realize how important it is. I think within years it got more this global scale. And I think a lot of, and it attracts more and more international and very famous galleries, and also the big name artists. And as I already mentioned with the Ljubljana, it's a 1 hour trip with Ljubljana, but also with Vienna, I think it takes like around 4 hours. I think it's also to make an effort. It's important to make an effort for the artists, and also to go there and maybe spend 1 or 2 days just to have them introduced to the galleries.
Definitely, but here I would say that definitely put on your map curated by. It's taking place maybe I think on the same weekend and the fair opens. Mm-hmm. And it's every year maybe 20 or 30 galleries invite curators to curate a show in their space, and it's partially from artists they work with, partially non-artists, but this is a super interesting program curated by.
I'm also writing all the notes, so because I told them when we talk with Vanja and Leigh, and also I will send them a short summary of all the notes taken and of all the links that can be useful for the development of the career. I think you told us everything about the foundation, and I really appreciate the effort of a foundation that is doing a great job in Croatia. And I would also recommend all the artists who come to Dubrovnik to put on their map the island of Olafur. As we already mentioned, there's this pavilion by Olafur Eliasson Studio that was primarily actually shown at the Venice Biennale, and then it was taken to the island, and hopefully it will stay here permanently. And there's also a beautiful monastery which now houses the collection, the private collection of the family. And it's we have some from the 15th, 16th century items, but also there is a contemporary art, and also from this contemporary art collection from Francesco. So it will be very interesting to see also the dialogue between these two collections, and somehow to see a thread, a continuation of this collecting in their own family up to the present day. I would like to thank you so much, Simona, and thank you for your recommendations. And also, if you have some other ideas or recommendations, feel free to text us whenever you want to. I will be happy to share with the artist community in Croatia. Our next speaker, he's already here, is also an Austrian person. This is Mr. Peter Losch. He's the director of the Maistra Collection Hotels, and we know them by their beautifully art collection and their amazing architecture in Rovinj. So I would like to welcome Peter. Can we?
Hi, hello everybody.
Hello. How's the situation in Rovinj now? I heard the tourism industry was quite good this summer.
No, Rovinj summer was great because we are driving destination, so it was really, I think, one of the best places in whole of Europe to be for leisure or professionally. But now it's quiet, you know, with the new restrictions. We only have Hotel Lone open in the moment. But even now, you know, I always say Rovinj is on lockdown every winter, every year. You know, all shops and restaurants are closed anyway. So for us, it's not such a big dramatic change maybe than if you live in a big capital. It's quiet every winter, so you get used to it.
I will just tell more to our artists the context of the Maistra collection, and I would just like to mention that the Maistra collection hotels, they do not operate only in Rovinj, but we also have them in Dubrovnik. So I would just like to ask you if you can tell us more about this, and just like the spots or the future projects of the Maistra in Croatia. Where are you spreading, in what cities?
Okay, I mean, just I think I'm the only one on the whole call again who has no idea about art whatsoever. So. No, just quick, you know, I mean, I guess most of the people here know about Maistra Adris. So Maistra is one of the biggest hotel companies in Croatia, owned by Adris, which is one of the biggest, most influential companies in Croatia. And just quick introduction to art, you know, what is maybe interesting from us, we cover really art on all levels, like from Adris, our owning company, who have Adris Foundation and Adris Gallery. I mean, this is a level I'm not involved at all, but where we also do exhibitions on a high level, and also is one of the biggest foundations in Croatia who supports art, science, and cultural projects. But just introduction, so we cover this level as well, but I can't say anything about this. Coming to Maistra and hotels, most probably we are on the private sector, but for sure in the hotel sector, the ones who spend the most on art and design in Croatia. I'm pretty sure about it. I don't have the figures. Particularly in Maistra collection or luxury collection, where I'm responsible for, which is Hotel Lone, Forster Hotel, Hotel Eden, Hotel Montemolini, the new Grand Hotel Park, which we opened last year, Hotel Adriatic, which has maybe the most to do with actual art, but also the Sheraton in Dubrovnik, and indirectly it doesn't belong to the collection, but I'm looking after the Hilton in Dubrovnik as well, which is managed by Hilton, but we are the owners. So that is the portfolio. But we have another 30 properties, the Sheraton in Westin in Zagreb, we have campsites, we have 3-star hotels, 4-star hotels, resorts, islands, everything.
I would like to also focus when you said that you're, and I'm sure it's true, that you're the biggest actually company that commissions the artwork in Croatia. I think it's very important to somehow to emphasize, as we did with Simone Sental, the head of collection, Thyssen-Bornemisza Art Contemporary is that the first motivation to buy art is not to put it in a private, in the, how we say in Croatia, in four walls of our house, but actually somehow to reactivate the collection and somehow to have a longer period of life for the artwork. So that's why I think for Maestra, it's really important that it's, you do not use art as just a decoration for the hotels, but you also like to put an emphasis on the meaning of it, and also somehow to create this ambiental art, which is very important for the feeling of the hotels.
Exactly, and that makes it maybe for artists working with art quite interesting, because actually we cover all areas. We also cover the boring, just putting a picture on the wall, so there's a picture. We do that as well. If you take Sheraton and Hilton in Dubrovnik, which are managed by Marriott and by Hilton, where also we ended up, like in the case of Hilton, which we renovated the room 3 years ago, that the English architects, which were selected by Hilton and by us, and who did a great job, but then the art was an afterthought, to have paintings or pictures or photos or prints in the rooms or the corridors. But you know, it may be not so artistic valuable, but it's still, we were looking for young local artists, and we bought prints and we put them there. So we cover, let's say, the traditional hotel part as well, which for certain artists is interesting as well, because we spend money which ends up with artists. In Rovinj, our flagship, of course, as you said, we take a completely different approach. And there we also employ professionals, be it like you or Vanja Žanko, or working very close with VLHD, Sylvie Novak, and their art is very important. I mean, it's not only art, it goes from art over design, uniforms, graphic design, to greater concept. And there it varies from hotel to hotel, what the main focus is. If you take Hotel Lone, it was contemporary local design, with then some contemporary modern artworks supporting this.
I think it's very important that you said that you're not commissioning the somehow traditional media in the artworks, because a lot of artists, when they want to apply for some workshops or also for some commissioning of the artwork, they're always afraid that the hotels are mainly focused on these traditional media, such as oil and canvas or prints or graphics. But I think it's important, for example, for the artists maybe to visit some of the hotels, because I was really impressed by the hotel park, because, for example, you commissioned this huge sound installation by Davor Sanvincenti. So you also tend to open these borders a bit and just to question also your own limits.
Yeah, no, we're really looking into it, and you know, it's really all aspects, all areas, because again, in hotels, it's, of course, first it's for the guest, but there it's visual, sound, smell, everything affects our business or our guests. Again, Lone was very conceptual, modern art. It was, the foreground was design, architecture. Then when we did Adriatic, which is a little boutique hotel with 18 rooms on the main square in the old town in Rovinj, and their art was #1 actually. And there again, Vanja Žanko actually was the curator. And again, with experts like you, our architects, designers, curators, we can't do it. We don't have experts in the company, and there we fully rely on curators, or often even our architects, or even people like Davor Bruchetta in certain cases, who are much more in the art scene than we are, and we give them very much open hand to create the whole concept around it. And then actually with the whole hotel operation, we try to follow. So Hotel Adriatic this is really about art, because we have, I think, 30 different artworks. Like every room has a different, was done by a different artist. The public areas, we have different installations, and all was put together by Vanja Žanko. Vanja, thanks for a great job again.
I was wondering, how do guests respond to this new context? Are they, for example, do they show their interest in particular artwork? Do they want to, if they like something, do they initiate some artist visits or the studio visits?
No, guests are very interested in it, you know. But again, it's very interested. It's maybe we have 10 guests per year who are seriously interested. whom we then give the contacts or so on. And of course, this is part of it, and this is important for us. And although why we're doing it, for us, the most important thing is to have some substance, to have a concept, to fill it with meaning. Because although from our owning company and Maestro, our flagship, it's very design, art, is very important. And we're doing that for 12, 13 years, and it proved to be super successful. And of course, we continue to do it. So all our boutique or five-star hotels are actually, the concept works more done by architects, designers, and artists than actually by us hotel people. We then afterwards try to make a hotel out of it and make it work and make money with it. And this proved to be very successful. And even 12, 13 years ago, for sure in Croatia, with loan effect, then we were the first ones. Basically, the hotel was conceptuated by CLHD. And we operational people came afterwards and tried to make it work. And it became one of the most successful hotels in Croatia. And,
yeah, I think from this perspective of the rebranding, I think you really position yourself above the average luxury hotels in Croatia, because I think you had this added effect with your service. And I was also wondering, are you working, I know, for example, we have this project, Artists in Residence, Artists with Chef, where we invite artists and then they spend 1 week at the hotel. And we tend to actually provide them the whole context of the gastroeconomical, but also of the artistic scene in Istria. And we encourage them actually to connect with the Croatian artists, curators, and where we have this actually dinner when we have 12 people, and it's like a platform for the networking. So how important is it for your collection at the Maestro to be reactivated, constantly questioned?
I mean, it's very important, otherwise we wouldn't do it or try to do it, but it's also very difficult. You know yourself, for us to keep it alive, it's very difficult. For instance, because of course from our top level, we don't really have a lot of support because we are a business company and this is just a small aspect. And to keep it going, it's not easy and it takes a lot of energy. And as we don't have in the company somebody who's a coordinator or curator, basically me or my team, we have to try to make it work together with your help, of course, and others. But I think it's extremely important because again, our big challenge as a hotel operator is to keep it all alive. You know, once a hotel is open, it's built, it's designed, the art is on the wall, what comes next? You know, and there we could even need more help from everybody, because again, we are, call it businessmen or hoteliers or operator, we're not art experts or artists. And there we often struggle to find partners to make it work, because there, you know, our big budgets are for building the hotel. Once the hotel is built, we run a business and we have to be profitable. And not that everything we do for profit, but at the end of the year, I have to produce a profit. So my budget is limited, but we are very interested to do a lot of pop-up things. We have lots of resources. We're always looking for partners whom we could do something together, but this proves to be quite difficult because they are even artists or art organizations are often very unflexible. And we would like to be more creative, do crazy things, but I can't spend a lot of money. We're happy to give certain funds, our energy, our creativity, our resources, but then often it becomes complicated.
And yeah. I would also like to ask you the part of the commissioning artwork. You said you collaborate with a lot of art experts. So I was wondering, is it only the art experts who choose the art, or also the architects who is actually involved in the whole process of decision making?
No, again, that makes it so interesting maybe for artists to work with us, because it's on financially and organizationally completely different levels. Hotelone, it was CreArt. Hotel Adriatic, it was Vanja Žanko as being the curator together with CreArt. Hotel Park was CreArt together with Piero Lissoni, who was interior designer, and also Davor Bruketter, who was part for the creative part and who selected a lot of Croatian graphics, for instance, to be then incorporated into the whole collateral and everything. And again, that makes it interesting because we really not only put a picture on the wall, but it's from the interior design over the art, over the graphic design, everything works together. But then, for instance, and that's for our artist in residence, chef meets artist meets chef. For instance, from there came Davor San Vincenti. Because 3 months before the opening of Park, and that's where I often come in. Of course, everything was covered, but I wasn't happy with the acoustic and how it sounded at the hotel. And I remember that 1 year before, I was sitting next to Davor, and he was telling me everything about his art. And I called him, and luckily he also was well known by Real HD and Sylvie Novak, who then supported me, and that's how he got involved. Or when we did our 4-star hotel, Hotel Eden, we renovated all rooms 3-4 years ago, and we had a very good but a little bit boring architect who basically did the standard hotel room, and I said that is too boring, and he didn't really come up with ideas, and I liked very much the light boxes which Silvia Sofia did in Hotel Adriatic, so I called her, and then out of it came actually a pretty big project for her, for Hotel Eden, a 4-star hotel with illuminated light boxes in every guest room of photos of local fauna, which again, basically I contracted her directly for 325 rooms. So it's all financial levels, all kind of influences, which again makes it interesting because we are pretty open. We don't only have one channel, but you know, or if we do a campsite where we don't have a big famous architect and interior designer, we may pick something, and maybe somebody makes a creative suggestion, and we're happy to go with it.
That's why it's very important, because repeatedly during all these now 4 discussions, we put an emphasis on this importance of the networking, especially with these artistic circles, especially with the architects and interior designers, also the hotel industry, the collections, because you never know. You said you were just sitting next to Davor San Vincenti during the dinner and you like his ideas, and 1 year afterwards you remember him. So I think it's very important also for people to mingle a bit, you know, and just to explore who is doing what in Croatia or maybe abroad, and also be very open to suggest something for the collaboration, because a lot of artists, they tend to stay, maybe to wait for being invited to one project, while this initiative by themselves, it's very important. So every time when we're with someone, it's very important also to initiate a conversation and to present ourselves in the best manner possible.
Exactly, you know, it's not only about doing something creative, but I think you also have to be creative in a way in promoting yourself, or find creative way how to make your art work.
Mm-hmm. I would just like, as I already mentioned during the previous discussions, because I saw there are some new participants, all the notes taken during the discussions and all the links and important links and important lists of the residents we will send to all the participants. And I would also like to reach slowly to our conclusion. And thank you, Peter, for just showing us and explain us the mission and vision of Maestra, because a lot of artists, I'm sure they heard about your work, but it's really interesting also to have this direct communication and direct actual discussion with the person who is actually the main force behind all these projects. Javila sam za kraj još htjela svima zahvaliti na hrvatskom jeziku. Kao što sam rekla, znači bit će follow-up email sa svim detaljima. Također, ukoliko vi imate bilo kakvih pitanja ili ukoliko biste htjeli možda doći do nekih kontakata ili do nekih rezidencija, ukoliko niste sigurni kako pristupiti, slobodno vam se možete javiti, a i zato zapravo i služi Hrvatsko društvo, odnosno Društvo hrvatskih umjetnika, koji itekako svojim radom, posebice zadnjih nekoliko godina, inicira velike projekte i pokušava što više nekako staviti naglasak na tu inicijativu samih umjetnika, koji bi i sami trebali nekako krenuti taj jedan izazov. a što je važno pri tom nekakvom izazovu u razvoju karijera, kao što smo pričali i s Vanjom i sa Simone i sa Leigh, važno je nekako opet iskristalizirati svoju viziju koja ne mora biti do kraja jasna, ali opet nekako možete, kao što je rekla Vanja, jedan odličan savjet, fokusirati se možda na umjetnike čima se rad sviđa i koji želite pratiti i nekako vidjeti u kojim su oni smjernicama išli i pokušati nekako se pratiti time. Vida, hoćeš li ti možda još nešto reći u ime HDLU-a?
Evo, ja bih se samo u ime HDLU-a i svoje osobno ime zahvalila svim govornicima, ali i svima vama koji ste bili danas ovdje i vidim pozorno slušali, nitko se nije odjavio. Nadam se da je svima bilo korisno i da ćete naći neke informacije koje će vam pomoći u vašoj budućnosti. Također najavljam da ćemo poslati, dakle, staviti na web i poslati vam svima mailove sa svim informacijama sa ovog sastanka, te ovaj video koji smo snimali tijekom ovog seminara. Pa se nadam, i ukoliko naravno ćete biti potrebno neke dodatne informacije, nemojte se ustručavati, kontaktirati me ili kontaktirati HDL. Eto, hvala vam svima što ste subotnje jutro proveli s nama. Pozdrav!